Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ask Pastor Keith, where today we have a question submitted by one of our Lighthouse teachers, actually. This teacher was asking, just have been interacting with the students. And a question that comes up regularly is the question of evil, the question of, why does bad things happen to good people, especially, things that, people don't have control over, things like innocent babies being aborted, injustices and things in the world. And I think this teacher in particular has been having difficulty engaging with the students, and they try to bring up other topics such as sin and those, free will and those sorts of things. But Pastor Keith, can you provide any insight as to how to address these students?
Well, this is a perennial question, and it's been with us very long time. And I don't think no one can give a satisfying answer. First of all, it's a very emotional question. Any logical answer will not satisfy. And second of all, it's more complicated. The question is posed from secular humanistic worldview, and the answer as a pastor I need to give from biblical worldview. Therefore, it's not going to be satisfying in that way. I say it's a secular humanistic because the good and bad are very subjective. And in fact, in our life, bad turns to be good and good turns to be bad, depending on the seasons in life and so forth, in situations. So the question of bad things happening to good people are very subjective. That good person can be very bad in other situations and other people, such as Nazis were very nice to their own family, but they were not against Jews and others. So we cannot really talk about in that very broad sense. But what happens, the question is more about suffering. Why is there suffering? Why doesn't God intervene and eradicate suffering? That is more close to the questions that we can handle. And that is, we have to have a biblical worldview that kind of covers the whole basis here. We are living in an imperfect world, meaning we have sin factor. It's not only my sin, but sins of others. We are living in the consequences of others' sin as well as our own sin. Because of that, it is very messy in that way. So let me give you an example of a drive-by shooting by some gang member, and it happened to hit a stroller and baby died. It's a tragedy. Why didn't God intervene? But according to natural law, the barrel of that gun was angled just right for the stroller. And the bullet didn't turn into a cotton candy because it cannot change the physical properties. In fact, if it changes, we're in a big trouble because we cannot build buildings because concrete can be turned into marshmallows. And so we cannot live in that kind of unpredictable world, and that is not the way God created. And because of that, this is an important point, that we are given the responsibilities and to be good and to be loving. And if God intervenes in all our mishaps, then we become irresponsible. We can live whatever. We can live and we can drink and drive, and we will not get into car accident, killing an innocent victim, and so forth and so forth. And so there are sufferings in this world because we are living in an imperfect world, including the babies born with challenges of many kinds. And so we are living in an imperfect world. That does not mean that's a permanent condition or a plastic condition. We can overcome. That's why by faith, God intervenes within us first, and then to overcome other factors in life as well. Helen Keller is one of the examples, deaf and mute, and yet she was able to overcome those things, right, by a loving tutor and so forth. There's a beauty that comes out of suffering, and there's incredible human abilities are developed through those challenges as well. That's why David said in his psalm, "It was good that I was afflicted," and by faith we overcome these things. So it's very difficult to explain in a short time like this, especially, but we have to recognize the fact the question is posed in a very secular humanistic worldview that defines good and bad in a very particular setting. And then answer is a sin factor and imperfection of this world, but at the same time, gift of faith and God's intervention to overcome. And those things cannot be explained in the secular humanistic worldview. That's why it is unsatisfying answer. And also because many times those who ask have loved one, lost a loved one, or going through suffering. And therefore it's an emotional question. And no matter what kind of answer you give, it will not satisfy that person.
Wow. Thank you so much for that answer, Pastor Keith. I'm sure it's just filled with so much nuance, just answering this question for each person individually. But thank you so much for your insight. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Ask Pastor Keith.